Well, yes, they do go above Manchester City, but they're behind Arsenal on goal difference as they lead the way ahead of Manchester City, who have played a game less because they were in FA Cup action. Aston Villa now 6 points clear of Tottenham, but Tottenham do have 2 games in hand. Their fixtures to the end of the season are tricky, though. It's Newcastle in 6th place, level on points with Manchester United, but that goal difference might prove a big hurdle for Manchester United when it comes to deciding European places at the end of the season. At the other end of the table, movements there, more in terms of points than position, though. Sheffield United stay bottom. It means that potentially they could be relegated next weekend. Burnley have given themselves a real chance of staying up now because they're only 3 points off Nottingham Forest. Luton are a point behind Forest, and Everton move 5 points away from the bottom 3 with that victory over Nottingham Forest. Crucial game that could prove. Brentford's big win means they are now 10 points away from the bottom 3 with 12 points left to play. 4. Left to play 4, I think is the word that was missing from that one. And it's a busy midweek of action. Arsenal taking on Chelsea. There is no room for error at the top of the table, but a Chelsea side who might well be buoyed by the performance that they put in against Manchester City in the FA Cup at the weekend. Then on Wednesday night, it's Wolves against Bournemouth, Crystal Palace taking on Newcastle, a huge Merseyside derby, and Manchester United at home to bottom club Sheffield United. Then on Thursday, Manchester City finally in action. Their title challengers, Arsenal and Liverpool, will have played twice before City are back in Premier League action, and they have to go to Brighton. And in the studio to look ahead to all of that and to look back on the weekend's action, one righty in, one righty out. We've got Sean Wright Phillips here. Luckily, the same policy doesn't apply to Darren's because Darren Lewis is occupying the 4th seat this afternoon.
Same messages, keep doing what we've been doing. Focus on the game, on the task, prepare the game really well, as we have tried to do with the time that we had available, and the boys looked ready to go again.
How much character is your team showing at the moment after the win at the weekend, after the week you had?
It was a good test to see how we react to certain obstacles and how much we want it basically, and what we are capable of doing when the task raises the level of demands and some people are questioning. Is the moment that you have to step up, and certainly the team did that.
Mikel Pochettino has said that Cole Palmer is a doubt for this game. How big a boost would that be, given he has been their outstanding player this season? I
don't know. We have no control on the players' availability. We have control in ours, and whatever they put out there, when you look at the squad that they have, the quality that they have, it's great. I think they're doing very, very well. I think they're doing much better than people talk, and it will be a tough match tomorrow for sure.
Have you been surprised that, given you mentioned the quality in the Chelsea team, that they're in the league position they're in? And are there any comparisons to be made maybe in your early days, what Mauricio Pochettino was having to deal with at the moment in terms of the project and improvement?
I think the journey of those clubs are very, very different. Nothing to compare, in my opinion. It's a huge admiration for Mao, because I know him since 23 years ago, and I really wish him all the best. He's an incredible manager. He's a huge leader, and he will inspire that club to get where they want to get. That's for sure.
A big talking point in the last couple of days, generally in the Premier League, has been around match officials. Nottingham Forest. Do you think it was right for Nottingham Forest to question the integrity of the match officials and the way they did yesterday?
I don't know. I'm not involved in that. I've been involved in a few, and that's nothing for me to comment.
Do think back to, I guess, the Newcastle game earlier in the season when Arsenal kind of called for an improvement in the standard of officiating. Are there any comparisons to be made to some of yesterday's decisions, that maybe there's still work to be done?
I don't know. I think we are all trying to improve the game in the best possible way, and we are all aligned. Things are going to happen. They will happen in the future as well, and yeah, when it touches you, it's very difficult, and you have to sympathize with that, because yeah, we've all been there.
Just finally, do you think the way that the referees are selected for games, is that a fair process at the moment?
I don't know. We are not involved in that. I'm sure they are doing whatever they think is the best solution, the best process, and it's constantly in review. Everything that we do is evolving and is in constant evolution, and they will try to get it better and better, and I'm certain that that will happen.
Okay, Niv from the PLP.
Hi.
How big was that win at Wolves after a couple of difficult results? It felt like a very mature performance by Arsenal.
In terms of size, it was quite good. It really meant a lot to us. We're in a great position in the Premier League. We've been like this for 9.5 months, and we want really to give it a real go and be really determined to do what is in our hands to try to lift that trophy. And tomorrow we're going to have a very tough opponent in front of us, and we will try to overcome that opponent again.
The fact this season there are 3 teams involved in the title race, it feels that it's more challenging, it's more exciting, and the margins are tighter. Would you agree with that?
They are, because obviously you depend on another 2 teams as well, and when you talk about, as I always said, the best 2 teams in the decade of this league, in my opinion, 2 of the best in the history of this league. So this is where we are.
What do you make of Chelsea in the last couple of months, and despite the defeat at Wembley against City, we can clearly see the improvement. When you face them in the winter, they managed to really challenge you. What do you expect more?
Huge improvements. I think they deserve to be in a much higher position in the league. When you look at what they've done and what they produce in games, they have reached a final, they have reached a semi-final, they could have been through. So I think what Mauricio is doing is really impressive, and I'm sure that he's going to get them there.
Ian, Talksport.
Hi Mikel, how are you?
Hi, very good, thank you.
Do you enjoy playing against, or pitting your wits against Mikel Pochettino? I know he's a good friend of yours.
Enjoy. I have to play against him, he needs to play against me. It's huge clubs, it's a London derby, it's a massive game for us, and we have prepared the best possible way.
In terms of officials you were asked about earlier, you said that you think things will change in the future. Do you think things need to change in the future? Do you think that we have a great product on the pitch, see loads of goals, great title race, there's just one little thing letting it all down at the moment? Do you think it needs to change?
No, I think it evolves. I think it will evolve because the game is evolving, and the officiating will evolve in direction with the game probably, and the technology as well, and there will be new rules for sure, and they will implement new rules in the future. We have to be open to that.
It seemed last week in the Champions League, VAR decisions were made a lot quicker. Was that your perception, that things are different in Europe compared to here at home?
It was super fast. That was fast.
Today, no. We'll see tomorrow. We need to assess tomorrow morning. But today, no. Today, I don't believe that can be involved. But we need to assess him tomorrow, and then we will decide. But even if he will be good tomorrow, maybe he's not in a condition to play. I hope we recover from this situation, and as soon as possible can be involved again with the team.
Is it possible to beat Arsenal without Cole Palmer?
With and without, always we believe that we can win. The most important is the team. The most important is the collective. Of course, he is an important part of the team. He's doing fantastic for us, but I think that is Chelsea, and of course plenty of players that can perform and to do the job also.
And the news regarding Chilwell and Gusto isn't good either. Can you explain what their problems are?
Malo suffered a minor injury or problem in the ligament on his knee. Oh, sorry, I am not doctor, but you asked me, and I respect and showing respect, trying to translate what is going on. I hope it's not a big issue, and Chile also after the national team is the same problem that suffered in the last few weeks.
Richard, how are the players feeling after Wembley? At the end of the game, Thiago Silva was visibly upset, and there's speculation that he may be leaving Chelsea at the end of the season. He is 39. Would you like him to stay, or do you know what he's doing?
No, I think it's not. I think he was saying after that is not time to talk. In the moment that he want to communicate some, things, he will, and for sure the club will communicate the situation. So far we are not talking. I think we were involved in the semi-final of the FA Cup, and now we are trying to go high in the table. I think at the moment nothing to communicate for our side.
How are you feeling after Wembley? Obviously, if Nicholas Jackson had taken some of those chances, it could have been very different. He's had a pretty good season. He scored 10 goals in the Premier League, but how much can you improve Nicholas Jackson?
Well, always first season always is difficult for all the players. More when you are in a position like you are a striker and you need to perform and to score goals, and everyone expects, in every single touch to score a goal. I think is our main striker or only the striker that we have fit, because Nkunku nearly didn't play in the whole season. Brocha also, and then he moved to Fulham, wanted to play more. Yes, I think he's doing fantastic. He's doing an amazing job for the team, running, scoring goal, giving assists, and I think his first season, and a young guy coming from Spain, even when not too much experience there, I think he's doing fantastic. Like we were talking, always I said, if we wanted that the player match the icon players here, or the idol like Drogba, if we compare with Drogba, yes, always he's going to lose. But if we split the history of the club with the team and the performance of the team and the performance of Jackson, I think he's doing fantastic. He's going to have all my support, because even if he no score in the way that he is fighting for the club, fighting for the teammate, for the team, and producing sometimes chances, he alone, and then of course he needs time to improve. Yes, he's going to be better next season for sure, no doubt about that. It's only that he needs to keep going.
There are 7 games left for you to try and get European football. You're 27 points behind Arsenal in the table. Are you confident that you can restore Chelsea to the level that Arsenal currently are at?
If we are confident into one day to get the same level, of course we are optimistic and we are positive, and always in football the most important thing is to believe, and of course to have a strategy and to have the plan to get in this level. Arsenal was a few years ago when Arteta arrived was in a different situation than today, and then with time, confidence and trust on him after a few years, is there, like happened with different coaches like Pep or Klopp, and here is not a different thing. It's about to have trust, confidence, and let us to work.
As it is, Manchester United are in the FA Cup final, where they're going to be playing against Manchester City, who came back from disappointment and a bruising encounter, really, with Real Madrid in midweek, and defeat in the Champions League, and got that victory, which have done them the world of good. Similarly for Arsenal, they ended a really difficult week with that defeat by Aston Villa, followed by defeat by Bayern Munich and the exit from the Champions League. The game against Wolves... It wasn't the prettiest game. It wasn't the most engrossing of games. It wasn't the most exciting of games. But it felt like a really important win for Arsenal, just to be able to get that result, even and maybe especially because of the way they did it.
100%. It wasn't a free-flowing Arsenal performance as you're used to seeing, but it was one of those where we've seen Arsenal before, certainly in last season, you can point your finger at it, where when the wheels come off, they will and truly come off, and it's not just a couple of games or one game, 2 goes into 3, and then all of a sudden they're in crisis mode. But that performance against Wolves, dominated by injuries as well, but it was one of those where it was just about the result. The performance was irrelevant, really. It was about, can they get the result? Because I thought against Bayern Munich in the week, first half performance was good, never looked like scoring. Whereas against Wolves, it was a bit of a huff and a puff, but getting that goal just before half-time...
Psychologically, that result was so big, because had they lost that, everyone would have believed...
Yeah.
Actually, they believed it after Bayern Munich. Their season's starting to unravel.
Yeah.
The defeat at home to Aston Villa and then going out of the Champions League, everyone's looking at Arsenal. What are they made of? Do they have that character? Last season, when they dropped points against Southampton and West Ham, they did fall apart. This time around, that's a fantastic response. 6th clean sheet on the road and scored the goals to win the game. Brilliant.
Score just before half-time helps.
Yeah.
Because if it had gone longer, 60 minutes, 70 minutes, 0-0, maybe it would have got a bit etchy. But to get that goal from Trossard in the first half, then they could relax second half, and they were always in the ascendancy. But it was so important that they've turned that result around, because now, psychologically, being back on the top of the table, I know they've played a game more than City, they've got a chance to go potentially 5 points ahead of City, because they play Chelsea tomorrow. That's huge. You're putting all the pressure back on City, and yes, we've seen City handle the pressure, but City, for me, at the minute, they look a bit tired. So you never know. If you get the points on the board, at least you're making them ask the questions.
With us, sorry, Kel, I just want to say, with us in the newspapers, Arsenal going back, that if Arsenal had lost that game, the narrative everywhere would have been, it's falling apart. With City, them going back top, even though they've got their defensive deficiencies, they're nowhere near as balanced as they normally are. They haven't got the best defence as they normally do when they go on to win the title. I say it like they do it every year. They do.
Well, yeah, past 3. So.
I'm on safe ground. But there is that belief in them now. They've won people over again. People are writing it as if this is going to go right to the wire, if it's not already City's title to lose. So Arsenal are actually convincing the people writing the narrative. They are actually writing it for them.
Yeah, and I just wonder if there is a note of caution to be expressed around Arsenal. It's going to fall to you to be the naysayer. Purely just I'm trying to give everybody an equal amount. But only because this is a Wolves side who've caused problems for teams high up the table at various stages. They've beaten Manchester City, they've beaten Tottenham twice. They've had good results against Chelsea as well. But this time around, I think they had 10 first-team players available. They had 5 teenagers on the bench, including a 15-year-old who was making his first appearance, surprisingly, in the squad. He hadn't got any under his belt before that.
There was a rumour he was doing his homework on the bench.
Although I did ask the question to somebody I was watching the game with. I was like, God, do you think you have to go into school tomorrow? He went, probably not, it's Sunday. all that aside, look, and even against that Wolves side, who are really up against it, and we talk about, key injuries to teams, they've been absolutely decimated by injuries at the moment, and it's their really creative players who are there. They put a really professional job together to make things difficult for Arsenal, and still Arsenal found it a bit difficult. So, I mean, they're not quite over that hurdle yet, are they, Arsenal?
I think there's a change. I think if you look back to when Arsenal went on that winning run of something like 10 to 12 games back to back, they were free-flowing and scoring loads of goals. I almost think, I wouldn't say it's dried up, I would just say the chances that they are creating, their front three are not taken. For whatever reasons it is, I'd go back to the Brighton game, where it was a sketchy one as well, and they needed to win that game, and they huffed and puffed, and they just couldn't get the goal in until that first goal went in, and then it was kind of like, we can kind of play now. And I think they're just not firing on all cylinders in that front area. Could say the same for all 3 teams, that are going for the title at the moment. It's interesting. I wonder if, from a goal-scoring perspective, if just that extra little bit of tension can just make it a bit harder to finish those chances, or even just a split-second extra decision, maybe make you doubt yourself a bit. Or... No, it's one of those. I think for somebody like me, I would say, yeah, that's possible. But I think when you've got the strikers that all of these teams have that have scored goals in abundance, like if you look at Haaland, he scored 50-odd goals. I think Darwin Núñez, as much as he misses, he does get himself in those positions to score goals. And the same with the Arsenal players. But I think, I don't know, for me, I would say more of a midfielder mentality. Yeah. Then I think that sort of pressure would get. But for Benty, I think that, for him, he would see that as like... Goals and it has been midfielders who've been scoring a lot of Arsenal's goals this season. They've really spread the goals around. They've had to, because you look at Martinelli, his form this season. I know he's had a few injuries as well. His form, his numbers have deserted him. I would say his performances has been okay, maybe not as electric as last season. Odegaard's numbers last season were
crazy.
Yeah.
But this season they've dropped a little bit. Saka, to me, he looks tired. But that's because there is no cover on that right-hand side. He has to literally play every single week, and that comes back to squad rotation. But that's obviously for another day. But when you look at the three squads and look at the firepower, I think Arsenal's firepower is not as strong as Liverpool's or Manchester City's. Like Liverpool's, they can rotate their three twice, maybe even three times. City the same. Arsenal almost like Trossard, Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus.
Do you think that? If you compare that to City, then I think it's a bit different. But in terms of Liverpool, I wouldn't necessarily agree. I would say the difference between, say, Klopp and Arteta is that Klopp has trusted in his younger players, like your Kwanzas, your Elliots.
He's had to.
He's given them. Whereas when Arsenal need to rotate, it's like he just doesn't believe in Smith Rowe or Nelson, to the point where when they do get that chance, all they're thinking about is, man, I can't make a mistake, otherwise I'm never going to get another
I've got
minute.
a stat on that, which is quite interesting, which is that Arsenal and Manchester City have used the fewest number of players in the Premier League this season, 25. It's a league low. But Manchester City have made the most changes to their starting 11 of anybody in the league. And Arsenal, I think, are 12th. That might have changed. That was true on Saturday night. It might have changed after Sunday's games. But it just gives you an idea. So Arsenal players, I think 6 of the top 7 players who've played minutes in the Premier League are Arsenal players so far this season.
He don't rotate them, does he? It's really weird.
Do you know, I think when you look at Liverpool's front three there, and Diaz, Gakpo, Salah, Nunez, at some point this season, they've done well and earned the right. Jota's another one coming off the bench. They've done well.
They've all been injured as well, so they've had to. It's not a choice. It's been forced upon.
Exactly, but the likes of Reece Nelson, who's come in at times, just hasn't been good enough. He hasn't been good enough. Smith Rowe, for whatever reason, done really well a couple of years ago. Effectively saved Arteta's job when him and Saka first broke through. He hasn't really been given an opportunity. Trossard in and out, and that's really it. Other than that, so they haven't really got the numbers to kind of, and especially at this start of the season where everything is pressure, where it's not about performances anymore, it's just about the result. It's the result. Arteta's probably looking at this squad thinking, well, I can't afford to just rest Saka for this game because not only are we challenging for the Champions League, we're challenging for the Premier League as well. So I can't trust a Reece Nelson instead of Saka because it's just not possible. So that's something I think going forward he'll have to look at for sure.
You know, at this stage of the season, if you're playing for something, the fixtures that are coming up, as these 3 teams will be doing, who are going for the title amongst others in the Premier League, you look at the fixtures that they've got still to come. Do you want to have a game where you can? You might want to play every game, but what I'm trying to ask is, if you miss one of those games, are you necessarily rejuvenated enough to get yourself through the rest of the games? Does it make that much difference at this stage of the season?
For Arsenal, it might do. If you're Arteta and you're looking at rotating somewhere, that Bournemouth game after the North London derby began to Old Trafford, that's the game, Bournemouth, I think, where you can go, do you know what?
So you look at Bournemouth at home and you think you can make a few changes, but what I'm asking is, if you're going to be playing midweek, weekend, a lot of the weeks that are coming up between now and the end of the season, does missing one game really give you enough of a kickstart? I don't know.
I think at this part of the season, especially the way they've been in the European competitions for so long, in terms of that, I reckon right now for them mentally and physically is to keep going because adrenaline is going to take them through that part. I think if you look back to City last year, that's how I think they won the treble, because in some of the games, especially in the bigger finals, apart from the United one, but I wouldn't necessarily say they played that well. They just knew what it took to win the game and they had the belief to do it. And I think that was just a knock-on effect of just winning, playing all the time, adrenaline taking them through. And when I spoke to some of the boys, like I said to you after the FA Cup game on the weekend, said to me they were shattered. They said even before the game, they said against Real Madrid, they gave everything mentally and physically.
Yeah.
And then they've come to play in this Chelsea game that have such a low block, there was no gap, so they had to keep trying to force situations again. He said that they were dead before the game, and in their head they didn't know how they were going to do it together as a team, but they came together as a team. Whether we say they played to their greatest or not, they come through it and they've won the game. And now I would imagine they have a few days off and they'd be able to kind of get some full mental rest back into themselves. So I think more stay in the team and just keep knocking them out and let the adrenaline take you through.
I think fans watching this will be able to identify with it, because I think watching a title race when you're emotionally invested, you'll be able to understand how people will feel exhausted at the end of the games at this stage of the season, even when you're just watching. But next up for us, and this is the thing, there's no break. They're constantly having to pick themselves up. As you said, every player will tell you it's easier to do that when you've just won a game, which Arsenal have done against Wolves. But they've now got Chelsea. Chelsea are a team that can cause problems. Whether they do cause a problem remains to be seen. This could be anything. This game. It's not a nice one for Arsenal to have in midweek.
Yeah, London derbies are weird. Form tends to go out the window. The only problem is that I think, as far as Chelsea are concerned, they're still a work in progress, and the jury is out.
Sometimes it comes off.
Indeed, sometimes it does. We were debating Nicholas Jackson beforehand, and I'm a Nicholas Jackson fan, I have to say. If I'd make the point in reverse, Arsenal, I think, yes, they don't have the forward line that they have had in the past, but that defence is the difference. 40 goals they've scored, 6 goals they've conceded in this calendar year. That's the reason why they're still top.
And Declan in front of them as well.
Declan in front of them. The recruitment's been outstanding. Jurriën Timber is going to have a game with the under-21s this week. We expect him to be available for the last few games of the season. I was at the Community Shield. He was terrific before he was injured, and he looks as though he's going to be a good addition. He'll take some time, you guys know, to get up to speed. But I just think defensively, Arsenal are so good, and I think if they aren't too shattered, as you were saying, I think they keep Chelsea out. They are everything that Chelsea aspire to be. Having covered Pochettino's teams at Southampton, the Spurs, they're so defensively strong at the back. But this Chelsea team, they give you a chance in every single game. They lack concentration. You can hurt them in the wide areas. There isn't any cohesion in that back line. There isn't any protection for the back four. This is the first time I looked at a London derby and thought, that's Arsenal's points to win.
Yeah, the only thing is, if they go for that low block again, and Arsenal's finishing isn't quite up to scratch, and I know Chelsea's hasn't been either, but it could be a draw. It could end up a goalless draw, this one as well.
100%. And when Arsenal came to City and did it, people were like, well, City struggled to break them down. And I turned around and said, well, hold on a minute. Arsenal struggled to break down FC Porto doing the exact same thing now. Arsenal's defenders are way better than that team and that setup. So, of course, City are going to struggle. So if Chelsea do the same thing, Arsenal will find it hard to break down because there's no room for people like Cole Palmer. Well, no room for people like Odegaard, who likes to drop in those pockets, and he's the man that puts in those little cheeky passes, gets those spaces ain't there, then they're talking about playing from wide areas.
But don't you think that, very similar to the City game, Chelsea did terrific all the way through with that low block, but then there is always a moment in every game, against Burnley, against Sheffield United, doesn't matter the calibre of the team, they switch off their concentration.
They can't do it for 90 minutes. That the problem is, but it goes back to what Kel says, they might only have 1 or 2 chances, but the way Arsenal are finishing right now, they're not actually taking the chances they should be. Like, we was talking in the green room and you said Trossard's shot, although it was a great strike, he kind of shanks it a little bit, if that makes sense. So it goes in, but that's a freak strike. That wouldn't happen every game sort of thing. So I reckon it's going to be a really
Do you know, it's always important how Arsenal start. Arsenal always are better when they start fast. If they start kind of laboured, we saw it at the back end of last season where Southampton's the classic example, came out the blocks laboured, give that goal away, they're chasing the rest of the game. Arsenal always better, especially at home, when they come out really fast, because that might not allow Chelsea to get into that low block. All of a sudden, they're 1 down. It's like, oh, what do we do now? But if they come out that kind of laboured, a little bit like they did against Bayern in the week, and Aston Villa, where they come out, it's not as firing as usual, then it could be a long afternoon.
I thought Arsenal came out unbelievably fast against Aston Villa. I think the problem that they got then is they didn't take the chances that were happened, and Aston Villa just grew and grew and grew into the game. And it's almost like, so you're saying, if Arsenal come out that fast and they don't score in the first 25, 30 minutes, they seem to blow out.
Yeah.
And then it just seems to go the opposite direction for them at the minute.
Yeah, it feels like a game Arsenal should win, but you can definitely make the case for them coming away with having had a difficult night. It's on Tuesday. Cole Palmer is reportedly ill.
Oh, yeah?
The only caveat, I was just processing that in my head for a second. The only caveat I would say is, if that is the case, then Chelsea might be even less likely to take a risk, and that might make it even more difficult for Arsenal to break down. So I didn't want to make you too happy about that one. If you're an Arsenal fan, you can't be. If you're an Arsenal fan, you can't be too unhappy if there's no Cole Palmer in that Chelsea side. But look, it's not going to be easy for Liverpool either. They're both going to be in action before Manchester.
Well, Jermaine, it's a bit like Liverpool, isn't it, for Arsenal? They kind of looked a little bit nervy of late, and they desperately needed to get back to winning ways in the league.
Yeah, I think it's normal, to be honest. I think, obviously, going at the Champions League, Bayern Munich, I think, you know, that's the great thing about football. The next game comes around quick. An opportunity to put things right, and I think they've done that against Wolves. You know, so I thought it was a good performance. You know, some 2 good goals. I thought Declan Rice was fantastic again.
Yeah, you really enjoyed his performance.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about Declan in a bit, but could you detect nerves from Arsenal in that first half?
Yeah, it's natural. It's natural. When you come off the back of a couple of defeats, you're going to question yourself, and what you don't want to do when you play against Wolves is make any mistakes. So you have to rectify those. You've got to go into that type of game where you've got to be, right, clean sheet is the most important thing. We've got enough talent, we've got enough goal scorers, there's enough players in the middle and the top end of the pitch to get us goals, but we go back to basics, you go clean sheet and you get the win. And in a game when you've been done in Munich and you lost last week against Villa, sometimes you've got to sacrifice the performance, and it's all about the 3 points. At this stage of the season, exactly that.
Let's have a look at Trossard's first. It was a curious goal, this, Jermaine. It wasn't the cleanest of strikes.
We used to call that spawny.
Spawny.
Which was lucky.
But, I mean, Gabriel, I think he was trying to get a penny there, but just here, he actually miskicks it, Hutch.
Yes.
And it actually goes into the top corner. So, you see how it comes off his toe, but, I mean, you take those.
Look at this, look. He cuts right across it. He's on the stretch.
He actually mishits it, yeah.
That's like a swinger, isn't it, the way he hit it?
It is. It's one of them. But you don't, as a player, you don't care. You know, you'll strike clean ones.
You take them.
And you'll ping one, it'll be lovely, it'll hit the crossbar.
Yeah.
It comes back out, where sometimes it's the back of the net that's the most important thing.
Look at that. He's amongst their top scorers, second on the list, 9 in the league, 14 in all competitions. And he's been far from a regular.
He scores important goals. You know, big moments. You know, you look at players like that and, you know, key moments in games. He's not one of those players where, you know, away from home, you know, you win 5-0, he scores the 5th goal. You know, in key moments in games where you need someone to step up, you know, regardless of how it goes in, you know, he manages to get these goals.
So tell me more about Declan Rice, who you brought up just a moment or two ago. There's something about him that really stood out for you.
Just everything. I mean, his whole round game. I've said many times that, you know, he could play as a 6, he could play in a double pivot, he could play as an 8, as a 10. You know, he gets shot at the pitch hard. Technically, he's good.
Leader.
He's a leader, he's calm. His whole performance was just brilliant on the day.
If you look when Thomas Partey sort of played in that position, he couldn't do the things Declan Rice could do.
No.
Totally different player. Declan Rice can drive with the ball.
Yeah.
You know, Thomas Partey is a very good number 6, but that is his position. Declan Rice, I always thought when he was at West Ham, he was not played out of position, but there was better players in forward areas. So Declan Rice had the intelligence to say at West Ham, I'm going to sit still. I always had the feeling that when he went to Arsenal, you'd see a different player.
Yeah.
A player who can do much more than he showed at West Ham. So that tells you that Arsenal have scouted a brilliant player, which we all knew. Obviously, that's why they paid over £100 million for him. But now he's showing.
Because Hutch, I think, especially with the top teams, and you know, people talk about structure, and of course, there has to be like a tactical element. But when it boils down, sometimes it's 1v1. And I think in games sometimes you need individuals to sort of like do stuff like that he does. And I remember years ago we spoke about Yaya Toure. You know, he modelled his game on Yaya, and you see he gets the ball from back to front so quick, he stays on the ball, he does everything.
Yeah. He's also provided, you know, that layer of protection in front of the back four. That team hasn't now conceded in 6 away games on the trot, which is exactly what you need at this time of the season.
Yeah, it's a protection that he offers, but at the same time, you mentioned Yaya Toure, different sort of player, but Jude Bellingham has got that ability to play as an 8 and a 10 further forward and drive on and score more goals. But he's still a very underrated player, Declan Rice. I don't even think he's anywhere near his prime, which is a scary thing.
Wow, that is something.
You know, so at his age, he's got, I wouldn't say he's got a lot to learn, but he can grow into a better player by hitting. I used to try and aim for 10 goals a season.
Yeah.
That's what should be Declan Rice's target. He might not hit them. He might hit between 6 and 8, 10. Yeah. It's still a good return.
Well, where does it leave the title race? Now, interestingly, both Arsenal and Liverpool have played 2 games. By the time City play their next Premier League fixture, a reminder, Arsenal take on Chelsea on Tuesday. It's the Merseyside derby at Goodison when Liverpool go to Everton on Wednesday before Manchester City go to Brighton on Thursday. So by the time City play Brighton, they could be 4 points behind Arsenal and Liverpool, but with 2 games in hand.
Well, we both
now, here's the question.
Go on. I know you're going to ask
where would you rather be? Would you rather have that 4-point advantage at the top, or would you rather have 2 games in hand?
Points, because the 2 games in hand for City, even though they're a brilliant side, if Arsenal and Liverpool go 4 points clear, that adds a lot of pressure to Man City.
But if there's any team not to question whether they can win every game between now and the end of the season, that's City, isn't it?
And I think they will do, to be honest.
You think they will?
I think they will. And I don't think they've been as good as they were last season, but at the same time, just that know-how at this stage of the season, are they good enough to do it? I believe they are.
4 away games, you know, City.
Yeah.
4 away games. I mean, they're brilliant and they're title favourites.
Yeah.
Because they've got the points in the bag. But if you fast forward a few days and they're 4 behind Arsenal and 4 behind Liverpool, it puts added stress on Man City, doesn't it? It's a must-win game all of a sudden.
So you both say you'd rather have points on the board, but as things stand right now, City are your favourites?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense then. And Jermaine, for you?
City.
All right, fine. Well, these...
Mày zoom to quay chỗ anh cho tao. Anh Jack à? Để tao chụp ảnh đội hình. Anh ơi, ra để cho đội 94 vào, nó đầy đủ đội 94. Chị Jack mặc áo bao nhiêu nhỉ? Anh Vũ này. Ui rồi. Theo nó thay Vinh à? Anh Vinh ơi, ra cho anh kèm vào đội 94. Dạ, vào luôn. Đỉnh cao ấy rồi. Đừng thằng nào về cho tí có gì còn. Không ai vào. Đừng thằng nào về. Anh Sơn giờ anh đang là cánh tay đắc lực với anh Sơn đó. Ôi, hay quá anh Sơn ơi. Anh Sơn đá đội này tự tin nhá. Anh ơi. Đây rồi, những bước chân lặng lẽ đây rồi. Quay anh dạy tao. Từ đây. Quay anh tao. Đáng zoom lên này. Rồi, chỉ quay anh tao. Ui giời. Chỉ quay anh tao. Đây rồi. Anh chạy gắt mẹ lên trên quay sát. Dạ. Đông thôi. Về. Đỡ được. Đoán 1 giờ đi tắm nước nóng lúc tắm ở đây, có đấy. Ở đây, hết này. Ở đây, đây. Rồi, thoải mái. Đi lên anh, đi lên. Coi những cái thức phim quý giá thì cắt riêng video của ấy. Mày quay được khoảnh khắc đấy không? Có.